Bon, bonsoir à tous, chers membres de CoopCongo et chers membres de la communauté congolaise. Nous allons donc commencer notre session. Soyez les bienvenus ce soir. Pour cette session, nous allons encore partager ce qui est essentiel à notre épanouissement. Comme d'accoutumé, nous allons avoir deux parties. Une très courte partie où nous allons parler un peu de CoopCongo et ensuite, nous allons passer à notre invité de la soirée, Madame Vambili, qui revient encore pour son expertise pour la deuxième fois pendant les 6 mois ici pour partager avec nous ses expériences. Nous sommes très reconnaissants en tant que CoopCongo et en tant que membre de la communauté qui veut donner de soi pour que les autres puissent s'épanouir. Merci beaucoup en tout cas, madame. Donc, CoopCongo, nous sommes la coopérative congolaise en Afrique du Sud pour tous les Congolais du monde. Et dans notre présentation aujourd'hui, nous aurons une petite introduction. Ensuite, madame Vambili va nous parler de sa présentation sur les finances. Puis nous aurons des questions. Alors, nous sommes toujours dans notre marche vers la formalisation de notre coopérative en Afrique du Sud. Nous sommes presque à la dernière étape. Les documents ont été revus par la CBDA, la Cooperative Bank Development Agency. Et maintenant, nous sommes en train d'échanger avec les Prudential Authority. C'est la boîte qui donne les licences bancaires en Afrique du Sud. Donc, très sûr d'être la future banque de Congolais en Afrique australe et dans le monde, notre vision est toujours celui-là. Alors, nous avons déjà rempli les requêtes de la Banque centrale en termes de personnes et en termes de fonds. Nous nous approchons maintenant avec les parts que les membres ont déjà payées. Nous nous approchons d'1 million de rentes dans notre compte. Et donc, quand nous aurons bientôt la licence, nous aurons suffisamment de fonds pour commencer les petits crédits à nos membres. Nous sommes très fiers de ça. Donc, nous avons 2 millions de parts que nous avons issues pour un total environnant 20 millions de rentes. Nous avons déjà plus de 50% des parts qui sont réservées et nous sommes sûrs que d'ici là, toutes les autres parts seront aussi finies. Donc, les produits que nous aurons pour les membres, nous aurons des check accounts, les saving accounts, et ça, c'est pour les crédits, l'épargne. Et pour les crédits, nous aurons les short-term et les long-term credit. Ça, ce sont des produits que nous aurons pour les membres, c'est déjà développé. Et pour ce que nous appelons produits communautaires, nous aurons l'assistance médicale et l'assistance funéraire. L'assistance funéraire est déjà développée. Il est question de promouvoir pour que les membres de la communauté entière, ce n'est pas seulement les membres du CoopCongo, les membres congolais à travers le monde peuvent souscrire à l'assistance funéraire. L'éducation continue, nous sommes ici aujourd'hui, c'est pour les finances des petites et moyennes entreprises. La semaine prochaine, dans les 2 semaines qui viennent, nous aurons à partager sur la chaîne des blocs, blockchain. Et l'autre qui vient, c'est-à-dire le 14 août, nous aurons ce qu'on appelle la crypto-monnaie, les cryptocurrencies. Nous savons que c'est vraiment répandu dans notre communauté en tant que citoyen du 21e siècle. Donc, les cryptocurrencies, la crypto-monnaie doit être aussi discutée par CoopCongo. Wara Connect, vous savez que nous avons l'application pour la connexion maintenant à travers le monde. Vous pouvez être n'importe où, vous pouvez avoir accès à votre compte de CoopCongo pour savoir combien est votre contribution. Plus tard, toutes les transactions se feront sur Quara Connect, où vous pouvez avoir votre statement, relevé bancaire, et puis vous pouvez aussi faire des transactions, des transferts entre vos comptes. Donc, le support est là sur WhatsApp. Veillons vraiment nous enregistrer pour le Quara Connect. Merci. Alors, d'ici là, nous demandons aux membres de payer leur argent pour les parts, pour ceux qui sont encore en retard, parce que ce sera lié à ce que nous donnerons comme crédit. Et aussi, bientôt, nous allons commencer la ligne de crédit à nos membres. Voilà donc comme information. Et maintenant, nous allons passer à Madame Bambili qui va présenter les finances des petites et moyennes entreprises, Small Businesses Finance. Elle est entrepreneuse, elle est fondatrice et copropriétaire de Love Your Locks Beauty Emporium. Elle nous a expliqué un peu ce que son entreprise fait. Ce n'est pas seulement les cheveux, mais c'est vraiment toute une solution pour la beauté humaine, pas seulement féminin, mais les hommes aussi. Voilà, à vous, madame. Merci d'être venue. Et we thank you once more for your time, for your sacrifices, and for your love of our community. We really appreciate. And in the name of our Congolese community worldwide, we really thank you for coming and explaining and sharing your experiences so that many more can benefit, and then we can become more powerful as we also share together. Thank you. Welcome. À vous l'antenne, madame. Merci.
Thank you so much, Papa Mark. I wanted to ask, can you hear me? The Zoom looks a little different, so I struggled with video and the microphone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, CoopCongo, for having me another time. Today's topic, as we know, is going to be about small businesses and finance. Very interesting and very important topic. A lot of people want to be in business. It's an aspirational thing to do. But for those of you who tuned in last time, you would know that we really spoke about the realities of business. And one of those realities is financial management and small business financial literacy. So today, within the time frame that we have been given, I'm going to start talking about the finances of a small business, but I'm really going to talk about it from the start, from the nitty-gritty, from the moment you begin to run your business. And I put it in a few steps, as I usually do. I put it in about 9 steps so that it's comprehensive. And while you're taking your notes, you can follow through that way. So the first step of financial literacy for small businesses is start with what you have. There is this misconception that you have to first get that infusion of funding. So we first start looking for people who is going to fund this business. There are pros and cons to having someone fund your business from the beginning. And one of the steps, we're actually going to talk about the different types of funding available for small and medium businesses. What are the pros and what are the cons of each? Unfortunately, when it comes to funding and places where so many businesses fail within the first 1 to 2 years, is that financial literacy portion. So I've been in business for 6 years now, and fortunately or unfortunately for me, these things were learned by trial and error. But I'm very, very blessed that my husband had been in business for so many years before. And so he's the one who would say, let's do this, let's not do this. But that's what had us thinking about the mistakes that we're making as small businesses that's not allowing us to grow. Because a lot of the times, small businesses are not able to grow, not because they're not making a profit or because they don't have clients, but because of the mismanagement of the finances in the background. And it takes money to make money. So the more money you make, the more you can grow your business and infuse the cash back into your business. So step 1 that we're going to talk about is start with what you have. Il faut commencer avec l'argent que nous avons déjà à main. The good thing about that is that it has minimal debt. Business is filled with debts and loans and interest and equity and all of that. We're going to start talking about it. But when you're starting off a business, I'm going to use an example of if you want to sell bags. Let's say you want to sell leather bags. People would often think that you first have to get that cash infusion, then you can make 10,000 bags and then look for the clients. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. The problem with that is you do not have a realistic idea of the number of clients that you are supplying. And the number of clients that you're supplying is what will determine your running costs and your overheads, which are all financial literacy issues. Start with that one bag. Start with that one client, one design, one patient, one product. The good thing about that is through word of mouth, that person will bring back another person who will bring back another person who will bring back another person. It's also sustainable growth for your business. So if you can imagine, I'm going to use a very culturally relevant example. Let's say you want to sell mikate out of your kitchen, right? And you're alone, you're making the mikate yourself. And suddenly there are 100 people lined up outside your door. I'm so sorry if you can hear my son. He's just making noise outside. But if you've got 100 people outside your door and you're selling mikate from your house, you're going to have a problem. The reason you're going to have a problem is because you have not yet hired people. You don't yet have the space or the literacy of what you can do to your space to cater to 100 people. So what begins to happen is people are waiting longer. People are not getting the best service. Maybe the mikates are burning now because you're trying to take care of all these people. And it gives your business a bad name. So sustainable growth, even though the aim is to be this big business that caters to all these people, the downside to boom, everyone in my generation and below, Gen Z and Gen X, they all want to go viral. And to go viral means that you blow up in 1 second. You partout, everybody knows you. But the problem with that is that there was not a growth that led to that. So you missed a lot of steps, how to handle the pressure, how to handle the numbers that are coming in, how to handle the requests that are coming in. And it's the same with the business. By starting with that one bag or that one client, you are also managing your expenses. You have to remember that the business has to pay for itself. I have seen so many people who are advertising before they actually have a product to advertise. So for example, you want to start a business, immediately you start advertising, paying a lot of money for advertising. Advertising can cost a whole lot of money. But one of the tips you can take to save money is social media, because social media is free and it's word of mouth. And even social media, you will notice that they have realized the power of small to medium enterprises because they now have business pages. The problem, however, with these business pages, I would advise you, if you're here and you're interested in starting a small business, do not get a business page immediately, because a business page, unfortunately, closes your clientele until you can pay for sponsoring. I don't know if they've now done that to personal pages as well, but when I started 6 years ago, you didn't have to pay for somebody to see your product. Today, social media platforms have realized that businesses are making money from the advertising. So now they're asking for payment in advertising. If you do choose to go that route of having a business account online, which I have to admit does look better, then choose a small advertising budget. Facebook, for example, and Instagram, they allow you to pick your advertising budget. When you're a small business, start with a very small advertising budget. It will still get visibility for your business without paying too much out of pocket. So don't be advertising something that does not yet have a big clientele. I'm just going to ask you to excuse me just to remove my son. He's making so much noise. I hope you can still hear me. 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, he is sorted. Okay, So step 2, sorry about that. We were at the advertising. Make sure that whatever you're advertising is covering for itself. That means in terms of advertising, your business should not feel the knock of the advertising, okay? So we've seen these big billboards when we're driving. Billboards are extremely expensive because of visibility and size, etc. Some of these people are paying up to 50,000 Rand a month to have their ad on that billboard. That's why you'll come by 2 months and it's not there, there's another ad, because you're renting it monthly, right? Don't be in a position where your advertising is costing you so much that you are feeling it in the pocket. When you're a small business, start with whatever is free. Go online, word of mouth, one product at a time, one patient at a time, one client at a time, because then it's also sustainable for you. And that's how you get to learn your business's overheads. What are the running costs monthly? How much do you need for rent? How much do you need for water? How much do you need for salaries, etc.? Number 4, I want to talk about the office space and the equipment for the offices. A lot of the times when we start businesses, we want to feel like we are going to work, okay? Because starting a business is not for everybody, and it's not everyone that can do it or even should do it. It's really for a certain personality, because you never switch off. You're always on the clock, right? But the issue with doing something that's relatively rare, like for example, in my circle, I think when you become an entrepreneur, you begin to meet other entrepreneurs. But I know 2 other women entrepreneurs in my circle who I feel can understand my daily stresses, my daily wins, my daily losses, etc., right? But the issue with that is you begin to feel isolated, and you also want that feeling of I'm going to work. Because of that, the office, the building, the premises mentality, there must be a place from where I can operate that makes me look like I'm a professional, and I too am getting up and going somewhere. That's a great ideology in the future. In the beginning, to drop back on an office space or renting an office space could be one of the biggest mistakes you make in the long run. And that's why we go back to step 1, where I say start what you have. Start whatever it is. Start in your garage and let the garage kick you out into an office space. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because even if you get a huge infusion of funding, let's say, I mean, for a small business, if someone gives you 100,000 Rand, that is a lot of money for a small business. But you are picking an office space without yet understanding your client profile and the number of clients that you see monthly. So if you pick an office space that's 20,000 Rand a month, when you have 100,000 Rand of that initial cash infusion from the funder, that's fine. But you're a small business. You don't yet know your profit, your bottom line. At the end of the month, you don't know the amounts of capital that circulates through the business. So what's going to begin to happen is your rent is going to slowly begin to eat into that initial funding. And some of the places the money should go, which is really the service, the building, the quality of the staff, the client experience, it's going to start being eaten by the rent slowly and slowly and slowly. And then in 3 months' time, you begin to realize that no, monthly we only make 10,000 Rand, but the rent is 20. So the good thing about starting in your garage is that you're already paying rent or mortgage, or if your house is already fully paid for, that's your rent. You're not having to add another expense month end. Starting from where you are, or home, or your garage, or your friend's garage, or your storage unit, whatever you already have, also gives you an opportunity to understand your income ability without the pressure of having to pay off expenses. So if you have your money, when the money is coming in and you're keeping it, give yourself about 3 months, minimum about 3 months, to figure out what is the general cash flow of this business. And with this general cash flow, what's the type of rent that I should be looking for? It's very, very nice to have a great place for your clients to come. If you're a doctor and you want to go entrepreneurial with your skill, you would want to get people the best place for you to practice from. The issue with getting the best place to practice from is that you may find that in that area, the people cannot afford what you're offering. It's just important for you to first find out What are you offering? And can you sustain this model long term? So I'm going to give you an example with myself. When I first got into the business, and I've said this before, I really didn't think that it would be anything like what it is today. I thought I would carry on with what I was doing at the time, what I was studying at the time, and people would just come and buy from my house when I come back from work. But fortunately or unfortunately for me, depending on how you look at it, somebody really liked the service, and before you knew it, 2 months into the business, we were on Destiny Magazine or in Destiny Magazine. Everyone was calling me saying, "Oh, Laetitia, félicitations, I'm so proud of you." I thought I could die. I wanted to die. And I didn't read that article for 3 more months. I didn't care for the article. The reason for that was I never expected that I would have that kind of advertising. Okay. So when they do an article like that on you, they open you up to a whole new clientele, and they also open you up to a certain number of clients. So what started happening is that I had people coming to my house around the clock, flying from all over the world because they saw this article online, they saw it here, they saw it there. But my house at the time it's not a business. Even my house now is still not a business. It couldn't cater for the number of people that were coming to the house. And I was alone. I didn't have any staff. Today, there's about 15 people there. But I was doing that all by myself while my husband was doing the bookings. And I really thought I would die because I wasn't sleeping. It was one client after the other after the other. And there was a part of me that had like, j'avais honte, Sony, like people are coming, this caliber of clientele from Destiny Magazine, they're coming to your house. That's not what they're expecting. Even though the article said this person works from home, I still, as a business owner, I had that feeling of, if only I had a nice place for these people to come to. In my mind, the space we have now is the space I wanted before the article could be published, because I wanted a nice place that people could come to. When I look back, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that that advertising happened while I was still home, because I learned so much. Number one, it established my clientele. Number two, it dictated the kind of premises I should look for. Here is the thing with picking an office space or equipment like an expensive laptop or whatever before knowing your clientele. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is sometimes you are thinking smaller for your business than what it's going to become. And sometimes you are thinking lesser of your business than your clientele. So if initially you go and get a space in Johannesburg, for example, because you know that this type of service caters more to people in that area, but then the bulk of your clients are now coming from Pretoria, you'll realize that that space is the wrong space because it's not situated correctly. And that's another benefit, the office space and the equipment, that's another benefit to starting from home, because it gives you a realistic idea of who is my client, what are my potential profits, what equipment am I going to need, and how do I grow in this business? Before I get into funding, I quickly want to talk about where money goes for small businesses. One of the biggest issues that comes with running a small business is the entrepreneur themselves. It's not really the business or the clients, because for the first time in a lot of people's lives, they're coming across a huge amount of money. So it doesn't matter what you do. Your income as someone working for a hospital and owning a practice will never be the same, no matter what you were earning. If you were running a practice, you will see a lot more money than you were seeing when you were working for a practice. If you were selling car parts before you owned the shop that sold the car parts, you're going to see an increase in the finances in terms of visually, right? It doesn't mean your bottom line is more, but it means that you are handling more money. The issue with handling more money is the temptation of where that money is going to go. When you now feel that there's all this money and you start thinking, oh, let me pay off that person, let me quickly do this, let me fix the lights in the car, let me fix the door in the house, the business is now suffering. A business that grows is a business where the profit comes back into the business as much as humanly possible. I remember when we left everything because we had this vision that this thing can actually work. I don't know what made us think it can work, but we thought so. And we had our first client. Our first client, it was a house call. We had to drive to where they were. They paid us 500 Rand. We took out 120 Rand to buy pizza just to celebrate, like, oh my goodness, this thing is working. And then the rest of the money went back into the business to make products. And that's how you grow it. You use a very small portion of it for your actual expenses. Most of the money must go back to growing the business, right? And this goes back to the last session we had with me when we spoke about business, to say, your business should be more than just about making money or giving you a name or making you famous. You must actually have a dream. You must actually have a goal for the business, because when the money starts coming in, the business is going to take a backseat to all the other things you can do with the money. A growing business is a business that improves over time. As a business owner, you cannot lie to yourself and think everything is going to be perfect. The clients are always going to be happy. The staff are always going to do the training that you wanted them to do. You can't even imagine that. The point that I'm trying to make is that improvements are always needed. A good example of improvements is these malls that we've been going to, whatever mall you love in South Africa, whether it's Castle Walk in Durban or another one in Cape Town or Johannesburg or Pretoria. One common thing you will notice is 5 years will not go by without renovations to the mall. As a layperson walking through the mall, when you walk through Mall of Africa, you cannot even see where improvements need to be done, because that's not for you to see. That's for the mall management to see. That's for the owners to see. But the idea that clients get bored very quickly. Mall goers get bored very quickly. For those of you in Pretoria who used to frequent Menlyn 10 years ago, Menlyn 10 years ago was incredible. It was huge. It was already an attraction. But a few years ago, they made renovations to still be one of the bigger malls in the country, and they attracted even more people. One of the biggest mistakes small to medium enterprises make is this thing of I've made it, right? So you stop infusing the money into the business because you feel like, oh no, at this point we're okay. But a business that's no longer being upgraded, a mall that's no longer being upgraded, a road that's no longer being upgraded is a thing that is about to slowly begin to deteriorate. So within your funds, even as you grow your business, you need to understand that that business has to be able to upgrade itself with the funds that are available. Okay, and now speaking of funding, let's quickly go into funding, because we've got a nice word. People like to say tenderpreneurs, you know, where you get a tender and that's all you do. You never really get the results of that actual tender. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people feel the joy of business is in the funding that comes in and everything that you can do with the funding. But whoever is funded has got huge responsibilities. Money is never free. Even a government grant is never free. There's always a responsibility associated to the money you're taking. And so you have to understand as a small business, where is this money coming from? What is expected of me? And how should I walk so that the people who made this investment actually get some type of return? So there are many different types of funding, but I have narrowed down 9 different types of funding that I'm quickly going to talk about just to help you understand where your money is coming from and why it's important to be careful with funding. We spoke earlier, step 4 was about office spaces and equipment. When you're getting this funding, this is where that knowledge becomes important. If you get yourself the top of the range laptop because you got R1 million funding and you get yourself 60,000 Rand laptop, and when the business starts, you realize, oh my goodness, I don't really need this laptop for this business, then you are still paying back 60K to the person that funded you. So those two things are going to walk hand in hand as I move forward. So the first type of capital investment into a business or funding that I want to talk about is something called venture capital. Venture capitalists are people who take lots of risks by funding potentially successful businesses. And these are companies. It's not usually individuals. They see a business that has potential and they risk it by investing into that business. Now, the venture capitalists can want higher returns on the profit of the business because they funded you when you were nobody. Okay. The thing with funding is typically you are not getting good funding if you don't have a business that's already running, because the person that's infusing money into your business has got to weigh the costs of getting into business with you. You need to show them bank statement. You need to show the history of growth. You need to show the capital income, etc., the net profits and all of that. That's why step one that says start your business where you are is one of the most important steps of running a small to medium enterprise, because we always have this idea in our minds that first we get the funding and then we can do what we want to do. But who is going to fund an idea that doesn't work? At the end of the day, you want to run onto a moving ship because there is money involved. Your funder got that money from somewhere and they expect a return on their investment. How can they have a return on their investment if there is no returns, if there's no business that is running? So again, I go back to start with the little that you have. Now, this is where venture capitalists differ from other funders because they take that risk. You don't need to be extremely successful. They can just see, if you tell them I want to run a vet cook business and I'm going to call it Nikate, these are the stats of how many Africans love fried dumplings and dough. And the venture capitalist says, hey, that's a good idea. I want to fund that. They're taking such a risk with you that what they ask back will be pretty huge. That's one of the cons. The pro is you don't have to have a running, hugely successful thing. It just needs to have potential. The con of that is that the return that they ask for might be a lot. The interest on that might be a lot. Then we talk crowdfunding. Most of us on this platform would be familiar with GoFundMe. That's when people fund your idea. Now, there's different types of crowdfunding for businesses. There's crowdfunding where people just out of the goodness of their hearts fund your idea. And then there's equity crowdfunding where a large group of people fund your idea for an exchange of shareholding power within the company. So 5 people fund your idea, and those 5 people require a certain portion of the company in terms of shareholding stakes in the business. And we'll get into that just now and the pros and cons of that one. Then there's angel investors. Angel investors are like venture capitalists, but they are wealthy individuals. So they use their social capital, if you will, because they have a big name or they're known really well or they're very, very wealthy. And those individuals approach small businesses to fund them. The con with that is they want equity. Angel investors want a stake in your business. So what is equity? Let's quickly talk about equity. Equity is who holds the shareholding power within your business. So for example, in my business, currently, it's just myself and my husband. We have never sold equity, at least not yet. And I'll explain why just now. Equity is a big deal because to open that business account, the bank account, that person has got to sign off on every financial decision or any decision that affects the business. When you're taking funding and somebody wants equity, equity is a lifelong commitment. If you look in the news, that's what's going wrong now with Elon Musk and Twitter. You cannot approach a company and be on the final stages of acquiring the most equity. So you buy that equity. That's what he was doing. And now you back off. The only way that Elon Musk would be able to leave Twitter now, according to Twitter, is by selling the same equity he's buying. So when someone comes into your business and says, I'm going to give you funding, give me equity, what you need to realize is that is a lifelong commitment. It is worse than a marriage because you can't really get a divorce. You have to sell the equity. And that means that you can't be treating the business account how you want to. And we'll get into that later. You can get a loan from a bank. Some people say it's better to get a loan on your bond because the interest rate is lower, about 15%. And if you get a normal loan, it's about 25%. So that depends on how people want to do that. But with a bank, it's a bit more comprehensive because we've taken loans for other things before. So small businesses also tend to take funding from banks. Then you have an investor. There are many, many types of investors. This can even be free. In my business, my first and only investor at this point is my mother-in-law. When we first started, we didn't have money for the stickers because you don't know the business, you don't know where to go, you don't know how much anything costs. So I just made these 10 bottles and they just sat there in the house. And she came to visit, she said, what are those 10 bottles? And so I told her what my idea was, and she said, hey, here's 2,000 Rand for the stickers. So that's an investor. An investor can be a friend, it can be a mother, it can be whoever. And the requirements or the payback requirements to that person can be whatever. In this case, because it's my mother-in-law, she didn't care. She was like, oh, yeah, just there you go. And thankfully that worked out. So an investor can be anyone. Then you've got grants from companies, from government, from philanthropists. Grants are usually free. You don't have to pay anything back. You don't have to pay back interest or a percentage of your monthly profit. The downside with grants is you have to have your paperwork in check. You can't now tell a grant, I don't have a tax number, I don't have a VAT number. You can't be skipping filing your taxes with SARS. All your employees have to be registered with the Department of Labor. You have to keep up with health and safety requirements. They might ask for certain documentations of, so when you get a grant, free is never free. I don't believe in such a thing as free money. Somebody worked for that money. And even a grant, if you're taking a grant, you just need to understand that they will keep tabs on you. Sometimes with grants, government wants to see where the money went into and what was the profit on what they gave you. So you will have to hand some kind of documentation, even though you're not paying back, right? Equity funding is when people give you money for equity. So when I first started the business, within a month or so of the business and just being on Facebook at that time, we didn't have any other social media, just on Facebook, nothing formal, nothing serious. Someone inboxed me and said that they would give me 300,000 Rand for 30% stake of the business. They wanted equity. 30% equity for 300,000 Rand. And of course, I refused that. I didn't even consider that because today I would be in so much trouble with someone I don't even know who has signing power in my business. I can't move. I can't make a decision unless they come to the bank, they sign the paper. I mean, it would have been a mess. Equity is really about trust. You really, really have to trust this person because you're giving them financial power over your business forever. And when you're a small business and you've just started, I just told you, my mother-in-law gave me 2,000 Rand for stickers. So when someone comes in your account and says 300,000, it could have been a scam as well, but I doubt it because I've had so many of those over the years coming and coming and coming. But you need to let your business grow. Give your business time. And we touched on this last time because the valuation of my business now versus the valuation of my business back then is night and day. For example, the net value or the net value of the business or the worth of the business also includes the assets of the business. So somebody comes in and they check all the equipment you have and they evaluate all the chairs and everything that keeps the business running, including your stock, including all of that stuff, including your profits, your monthly and yearly profits. They put all of that together to say, this business is worth this much, right? When you first start your business, it could easily be worth 100,000. And this is assuming that the business is making money. It could easily be worth 100,000. To buy 30% shareholding stake of a business worth 100,000 Rand is significantly cheaper than buying 30% stake of a business worth 10 million Rand. That's two completely different stories. So you could be a 10 million Rand business that's just at the beginning. And you're thinking, no, I just need an infusion of cash. And this person now has 30% stake. By the time you're worth 10 million, how much stake does this person have in your business? So even though it's hard to be a startup, there's a lot of grassroots work that's not really the nicest, that's not really the easiest. It's worth it before you take funding that wants equity, because at that point, you don't even know what your business is worth and you are selling yourself short. You will have someone in the business that's not a visionary who has so much say and signing power, and that itself could be the death of your business. We've got hedge funds. Hedge funds are offshore accounts that fund businesses for whatever return that they want. There's a particular hedge fund that I'm aware of where wealthy billionaires put their monies together and they put it away, and they just choose small to medium businesses to give those hedge funds to give those funds to. But if you go with this hedge fund, there's usually a middleman who runs between you and the offshore account, and that person wants a percentage. So nothing is free. Even if you've got a wealthy billionaire who doesn't want to give money to his family and they've got it in an offshore account and they're looking for businesses to give it to, there's usually a middleman who wants to take a percentage, maybe 10% of whatever will come out of that profit. And so these are the types of funding I wanted to talk about. I'm just going to go through it one more time. Venture capital, crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, angel investors, the bank, private investors, grants, equity funding, and hedge funds. With all of this type of funding, please, please, please be careful. Whoever funds the business has power and control over the business. The entrepreneur is a visionary. Before you can start doing funding and hiring and all those things, you have to make sure that the people running the business with you are trustworthy and that they are visionaries with you. One of our biggest telltale signs that this person wanting to fund us will not work well with us is when all they want is money. They're just, okay, I'll give you this much, give back this much. That doesn't work for us because there are months when the money is high, there's months when the money is not so high. And if you've taken funding from someone who's just about that return and doesn't see the vision behind the business, you might get into some trouble. Like I said before, equity is a lifetime deal. So think twice before you sell equity for funding. And then when you are spending the funds, be mindful not to waste. So there is a point at which businesses can sell funds for equity. When we talk about equity and shareholding stake and power in the business, we're talking about small businesses that have been around for a while. You now know the buying power of your business, you now know the influence of your business, and you're now ready to take it to the next level. And you want to share equity to somebody who can help you take your business to the next level. Okay, so we've spoken about the negative aspect of selling equity, but now let's talk about the positive aspect of selling equity. When you're selling equity, you've reached a place in your business where you wanted to go, you can no longer do by yourself. You have reached the glass ceiling of small business. And now you need someone who doesn't just have the money. Please catch this. It's not just about the money. It's about the connection to get you to the next level. Because if you're in the clothing business and you're making bags and you're making leather watches and wallets, etc., would you accept funding from somebody who is working with Edcon that owns Edgar's, Foschini, and all those people? Or would you take funding from somebody who is from Coke? Because there's a point in your business where funders approach you, because if your business is making waves, if your business has clients, you're going to have people approaching you. And so as an entrepreneur, you have to start thinking smart and not just thinking money. You need to consider is Coke, for where I'm going, for my clientele and my vision, is Coca-Cola, as big a name as they are they going to be the ones to take me to the next level? Or should I rather go with Edcon? Because Edcon, even though they're not in the best financial position, has got all the connections for where they make their bags, where they make their clothes. And so that lifelong commitment also takes your business to the next level. It's not just about funding at that moment, but remember, as the business owner, you are the visionary. So when you're taking funding from a person, you have to consider how that will affect the growth and the upgrading of your business. Number 6, so we're done with funding now, and you now have the funding, or you have a running business, a clientele, recurring clients monthly. Separate business finances from personal finances for tracking purposes. When you run a business, it's so easy to think that because you own the card, you can go swipe at Checkers, Pick and Pay, you can go swipe at wherever for whatever you want. Eventually, when we got an accountant involved, and I'll get in that, she will ask me, she said, Letitia, on the 17th of February this year, you swiped at Checkers. What were you getting at Checkers? And I have to tell her, we serve tea and coffee and wine to our clients. So I went to Edgar's to get the tea, coffee, and wine. And then when SARS, when she debates that with SARS and they say, we want the slip, they can't be getting the slip and seeing teddy bear and, whatever else that you're buying for your home. So it great. It would be great if from the beginning you can separate business and personal. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hack. It's a little tip where you can kind of play with the tax man a little bit. So some of these stores, we have a store where we buy bottles from, to package our products, but they sell a lot of things. They cater to a lot of businesses. So you can easily find a doll for your children. You can find playing things for your children. And when you're a business owner, you can cut those corners, but you have to be really smart. So what I sometimes do on those months when I'm just trying to save that extra, when I buy the stock for the business, I will then buy a doll. For example, I buy a doll. And when the accountant says, Tish, what is this purchase from the store? I'll say, no, I bought a doll, but there are dolls in my business. If you go into my business, I do have dolls for little children so they don't get fussy. So that's the kind, it's still, whatever you buy, you have to be able to justify how is what I swiped catering to my business. A nice tip as well, if you're a small business owner, please swipe your petrol with your business card, please, because you can get returns on that, especially if you have a kind of business that delivers. Let's say you do food and you deliver food to people's houses. Petrol is business expenses, and that you can get monthly. You can get as many times you want a month because SARS understands that for a business to run, it needs petrol. Guys, you can even buy a car with your business account. You just have to be able to justify that the car was needed for the business so that it can take goods from one point to another. So it's not to say that you can't use your business account for personal expenses, but you have to be very, very smart and you must justify it. That's why from the beginning, it is better to use your business account for business expenses, pay yourself the salary that will allow you to pay off your expenses, personal expenses, and then be smart with your business account. Some people rather get a business credit card, right? Let's say your business credit card gets 10,000 Rand a month. The business credit card, that 10,000 Rand, they will buy stock with that and they won't touch the debit account because that's for running costs, etc., etc. So that's a nice tip with separating personal and business. Remember that to the government of any country, you have an identity number, the business has an identity number. You are two separate entities to the states. So Letitia cannot be spending Love Your Locks money. It's seen as theft and fraud. And every time we see that in the news, this person defaulted, this person was committing fraud, we always think that they are bad people. They're not bad people. They're just not understanding that just because you own the business does not mean that you can spend without thinking about tax and SARS and all of that. Okay, then we're almost there. Step 7, overheads. costs, your running costs, your salaries. Please make sure, please, before you pay salaries, the most important expense for a small business, and this is us saying you've now left the garage, so your business has kicked you out of the garage, pay your rent. Number one is your rent, because without that premises, you don't have a business to run. And if you are home, the good thing about starting at home, because this is what happened with me, okay? When I started at home, I listed my house as the business address, because when you're registering the business, you need to put the address. So when you're paying lights for your house, SARS is okay with that because the business is running from there. You can justify that instead of paying two different rents. So when I mean rent, I'm talking about wherever you're operating from, even if you're at home. Do not pay salaries before you pay rent, because you could be paying people that don't have a job next month. Understand your running costs, understand your monthly overhead. You need to, for example, know as you're sitting here, how much you need to make in order to still have a business month end. So you need to know my running costs are 30,000. I typically make 100,000. The middle there is 70,000. Salaries are 60,000. That amount is left for water, lights, levies, as well as other running costs. So have an idea of what you make monthly. Month end should never shock you. If month end shocks you, you are going to kill your business because you do not understand how much you need to make in order to still have lights next month. That being said, you must work it out so that you understand what are your good months. So let's say a terrible month. Let's start with a terrible month. You make 50,000. A good month, you make 100,000, right? And a great month, you make 150,000. Whether you make 50,000, 100,000, or 150,000, the rent must be paid. That's how businesses have targets. Now, this is the benefit as an entrepreneur that I find in not being an entrepreneur, because you don't have to come up with those targets. You don't have to be worried about month end, bottom line, because when you're at work, you often hear about targets. The reason for that is because without making a certain amount of money during the month, the business cannot pay its expenses. So in my business, we have a different target. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday has one target. Friday has another target. Saturday, Sunday have another target. Public holidays have different targets. Schools going back have a different target. And the reason we've done that is so that we can make sure no matter what, we are able to pay rent and we're able to pay salaries. There's even, you will often hear people speaking about commission, right? You have a certain amount and then whatever you make over that is commission. Obviously, this system depends on your business. What you're doing in which industry will determine how you come up with these bottom lines, how you come up with these targets. But in my business, the beauty industry, they have commission. The reason they have commission and you getting over your commission is because you first have to make what you earn twice before you can get that full salary. There's a whole working out that happens with that because businesses are trying to make sure whether I have a good month or a bad month, I can still pay rent and I can still pay salaries and I still have enough money left over to buy the products that I need to keep the business running. For example, during COVID, you didn't have to be a medical practice to have masks. Every single business had to have masks because some clients just didn't bring masks. It was the weirdest thing. You had to have a stack of masks somewhere. Someone will come and the child doesn't have a mask. So a simple expense like a mask, you have to think of that. You have to have a bit of the money that stays over after you've paid everybody just for the running costs, the water, the whatever in your business. So second last, when we speak of running costs, let's talk about running costs and clients for small businesses. The hardest thing about a small business is how clients think they run your business with you. It's really tough because you know Pick n Pay, and we spoke about this last time. Every single large business, Fortune 500 businesses, have customer care lines, and places in the stores. Because even Pick n Pay knows people will complain. And instead of being shocked about the complaint, be ready to deal with the complaint. We spoke last time about the importance of client feedback. And last time we discussed how much client feedback can build your business, because you need to understand your client and how to better cater to them. Today, I want to talk about how the client can be so imposing on the small business. And I called this step 8 PR statements. You have to have public relations statements for clients. You know, for years and years, I had people tell me, why is there no Wi-Fi? Why is there no Wi-Fi? Why is there no Wi-Fi? Because Wi-Fi would be a running cost for me that the client doesn't understand because they're not in my bank account. So I'm currently installing the Wi-Fi because I feel like I won't feel the Wi-Fi right now. The thing about being a small business is that the client has access to you, and that is a positive and a negative. It can drive you insane. When you go into Pick n Pay, there are lots of things you want to fix. Sometimes the security guard is rude. The woman at the cashier didn't treat you well, or your milk that you bought is expired. But because you don't know the CEO of Pick n Pay face to face, you can't just go to him and say, no, this, you know, you have to go through the proper protocols to fix that issue. With a small business, you as an entrepreneur, oh, you are tangible. You are right there. They can just, and so as the runner of the business and the one in charge of the finances, you have to understand how to give clients professional, respectful responses when you understand that this thing is going to affect your overheads negatively. All right. So clients will say, why is there no water? Why don't you have a water dispenser? Why don't you have Wi-Fi? Why don't you have masks? Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? You need to understand that even when you have all those things, it's never enough for clients. Like I said, the biggest companies still have customer care lines. As the owner of the business and the one in charge of the finances, you have to know and be comfortable with what you are capable of doing in that season. And as the business grows, you make those upgrades. I mean, people drink wine in my place now. They didn't even drink water when we first started. But when you hear what the clients want, and of course, you have a vision too, because when they were coming to my home, they were getting tea and all of that. And when we moved to a space, I had to take the tea from home to the space because I knew that's what the client wanted. Today, tea, coffee, wine is just a part of the schedule, which, by the way, we had to take away during COVID. And so now you'll have a client who fully understands the world is in a global lockdown and we are on stage, whatever, who is still complaining that you're not giving her wine or coffee. During the pandemic, everybody was knocked in the pocket. I could not afford for the business to buy wine, coffee, and tea. So some of those luxuries had to go away. And the PR statement to the clients was, because government has said this in Gazette, what, we are not permitted to serve you any beverages in the store. As a business owner, that was beneficial to me as well, because I didn't want someone to get COVID at Pick n Pay. And then after Pick n Pay, she comes to my business, I serve her coffee. When she's at the doctor tomorrow, she's like, I got it at Love Your Locks. You know, so running costs and clients, it's important for you as the business owner to understand what you can afford in that season. My personal motto is I will not do anything that will hit me in the pocket. I won't. I don't want to feel the Wi-Fi. You know, you can make so much money, but making so much money and your bottom line are two completely different things. Even if it only costs 500 Rand to put Wi-Fi in the business, every cent of the business matters. Some months that 500 Rand is somebody's tip, because in my business, I have tips. I have people that make 1,000 Rand of tips. And that's something that clients cannot understand when they're asking, where's this, where's this, where's this? As the business owner, keep it in mind, mix it with your vision, and then look at your finances to see what is possible now. If it's not possible now, find a PR statement. Lastly, step 9, and I don't want to talk too much on this, but I want to touch it because it's really important for small business and financial literacy. First year that you've registered your business, SARS gives you don't have to pay or file any returns. I think they just think you're going to fail or something. They just think, oh, this person might not make anything. So they give you that year off. But from the second year onwards, you need to start filing your taxes, etc., etc. The reason I don't want to talk too much about this is because businesses have departments, and the financial department, I would rather leave to the people that do and know finances. Eventually, whenever you can, as soon as you can, please get an accountant. Because if you wait 10 years and you've been running your business for 10 years, you have to back pay those taxes. It will cost more with SARS, it will cost more with the accountant, and the accountant can actually help you understand how to better run your business as an individual entity to the state. And they are positives because you can get returns. Okay, so your suppliers, you get your returns from SARS. There's so many benefits to filing your taxes when you're a business owner, but getting an accountant means that you have somebody who is explaining to you how the government sees your business and how to better spend your money. So they can look at your expenses versus your income and say, you're paying way too much salaries to people versus what you are earning. You're paying yourself too many salaries versus what you are owning. Things like that. When we talk about small business and financial literacy, eventually it's actually better to go to someone that has the knowledge, that can guide you from the beginning to say, rather don't take this loan because the payback options are too high for where your business is right now. So that one is an as soon as possible decision. I wouldn't say to get it from the beginning because at the beginning, the business isn't making any money. And remember what I said, the business should be able to sustain itself. If your business has reached a place where every single month you have to borrow something from someone in order to make your bottom line, then you have to restructure certain things in the business. Maybe your expenses are too high versus your income. Maybe you need to lower your rent. Rent is a big thing. Please do not take rent that is exorbitant. A running business will run from a garage. And I know it's not the most fancy thing to say, but it's better to have a running business that you can sustain than to take a rent that's so high, eventually you cannot sustain it. So that's what I wanted to say today for small businesses and finance. As an entrepreneur, the biggest change that will happen with you running a business is the change that comes in you. So be ready for your business to teach you in-depth things about running a business, time management, family management, whatever it is. Just be teachable because the business will always change. I often speak about COVID. So many things had to change for us during COVID. And it's because the business itself will begin to tell you what it needs. Be mindful of how you're spending your money. And remember that to the states, the business is its own entity. So the business monies and your monies are not the same thing. Be responsible and put back as much of the money into the business so that one day you too can sell 44 billion of equity like Twitter was just trying to do. So it's worth it to invest in your own business. As much as funders can come in the business, nobody will invest in your business like you, with money, with time, with effort, and eventually you have more bargaining power when funders come and want to get involved in the business. Thank you so much for having me once more. And yeah, that's it for today from me.
Okay, thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Madame Pampili. Je n'arrivais même pas à trouver une seconde pour vous stopper afin que afin que je puisse soit parler en français, soit vous rappeler pour le temps. Donc, on a fini notre heure. Merci beaucoup pour le partage et nous allons demander l'indulgence pour que nous ayons 5-10 minutes où nos membres peuvent poser des questions. C'est que nous allons faire c'est de traduire littéralement votre exposé en français. Donc, on va faire toute une autre session où nous allons traduire ça parce que il y a 9 points que je ne peux pas à ce moment ici résumer, mais nous allons traduire ça complètement en français parce que c'est très, très, très important. Je sens que vous avez fait le parcours de votre business depuis le début jusque maintenant. Et c'est beaucoup de points qui donnent même aussi d'autres titres que nous pourrons partager plus tard. Je suis sûr qu'avant décembre, nous allons vous appeler pour discuter aussi. Peut-être, j'ai eu l'idée qu'en tête, nous pouvons prendre 2 ou 3 personnes pour partager sur les equity. Comment, c'est vraiment un grand problème. On pourra revenir sur equity plus tard. Ça pourra aider. Comment partager les parts dans une petite et moyenne entreprise qui a grandi. Je sais que vous êtes encore dans votre compagnie. L'equity, c'est encore 100%, mais nous devons déjà commencer à envisager pour les personnes qui veulent vendre, quelles sont les options. Donc, nous irons, j'ai comme ça noté des sujets par-ci, par-là que nous allons partager encore dans le futur. Merci beaucoup en tout cas. Merci au garçon à l'enfant qui était à la porte, qui voulait entrer et partager. Il veut devenir membre de CoopCongo. Il faut le laisser venir. Alors, je ne sais pas, on va donner le temps et l'option à nos membres de poser des questions très vite. Nos excuses en tout cas pour le temps. Nous aurons 10-15 minutes pour partager avec madame. Et puis, les membres peuvent poser des questions ou si vous avez des suggestions, s'il vous plaît, vous pouvez juste lever votre main et comme ça, ensemble, nous pouvons partager encore le temps avec madame Pamela. À vous, l'antenne, nos membres, les membres de la communauté. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez soit parler ou écrire sur le chat. Merci beaucoup. S'il y a quelqu'un qui a une question, vous pouvez juste poser. OK. C'était aussi clair que, ou bien c'était de trop. C'est une tonne d'informations que nous avons pu partager et nous sommes sûrs que nos membres ont bien bénéficié. Maman Justine, vous avez une question?
Non, non, pas du tout. Ce n'est pas une question. Je voulais juste dire merci beaucoup à Laetitia pour une meilleure présentation. C'était beaucoup, mais ce n'était pas non plus beaucoup, mais c'était vraiment très bien. Je la félicite pour ça et je l'encourage de continuer de faire ce qu'il est en train de faire pour la communauté. Je crois que ce que je veux dire aux membres de notre communauté, l'information pareille, on trouve ça simple, on trouve ça facile, mais ailleurs, je crois que c'est à acheter. Et elle le fait de bon cœur, on ne la paye pas. Je crois que c'est vraiment à féliciter. Et nous devons faire un effort pour être nombreux et bénéficier de cette connaissance qu'elle a.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Pour ce qui est des SARS, ce qui est de la taxation, je pense que dès que vous ouvrez votre compagnie, maintenant, on vous donne directement un numéro de SARS. Donc, même si vous ne soumettez pas votre taxe, on connaît que vous êtes là, donc, mais c'est toujours mieux de soumettre la taxation. Il y a aussi toute une liste de types de financement que vous avez pu lister. Et je pense que plus tard, on cherchera à aller en profondeur avec les détails qui sont là. S'il y en a 9, c'est aussi une autre avenue d'un sujet de partage complet. Mais merci vraiment pour le partage, c'est-à-dire que pour ceux qui commencent, commencez votre business de manière normale. Ne soyez pas pressés à aller à des endroits où on verra que vous êtes arrivé à un certain niveau, mais laissez le business conduire la trajectoire de là où vous devez aller l'établir et comment vous devez l'établir. C'est vraiment ce qui est essentiel, et la patience et comment la lecture de votre propre business pour que ça vous donne l'idée des clients que vous devez avoir et l'endroit où vous devez avoir pour le business, comment ménager votre argent et aussi comment être responsable par rapport à cet investissement qui est là. Mais aussi, vous avez partagé sur la vente des parts dans les entreprises. Je pense qu'on reviendra sur ce sujet parce que c'est un grand sujet. S'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, nous allons donc, on a dépassé de 15 minutes, toutes nos excuses. Nous souhaitons toujours commencer à l'heure et terminer à l'heure, mais souvent il y a 15-20 minutes de dérapage quand le sujet est trop succulent. S'il n'y a pas de questions, oui.
Il y a une question au chat là-bas de la part de Gladys. Je ne sais pas si Laetitia voudra bien répondre à cette question, mais je crois que tout le monde peut répondre à Gladys, mais comme l'exposé c'est Laetitia, si vous pouvez répondre à Gladys, lui donner un peu de tips là-bas.
Oh, OK. Oui, c'est une très bonne question. Merci.
How does that determine what salary you give yourselves and when do you start giving a salary? Hey Gladys, sorry, I was reading the question. Can I answer, Jean-Marc?
Yes.
Oui,
Okay.
oui, yes.
Okay, so from what I heard, Gladys, in terms of your salary, apparently you're not allowed to give yourself more than 10% of what the business earns monthly. I could be wrong. It was 10 or 15% of what the business earns monthly. You're not allowed to give yourself more than that. And then the other question was, sorry, I don't know how to work Zoom.
When do you start giving yourself?
When do you start? Okay, so that depends on how your business is doing. If, for example, on your first month, you're doing great, then you can do that working up percentage and pay yourself between 10 and 15% of the, I think it's the net profit, not the gross profit, probably the net profit. You can do that from the first month. I would suggest that you give your business some time so that you have a realistic idea of what you can pay yourself monthly. I didn't pay myself, my husband and I didn't get payment from the business for 4 years. We only started getting a salary from the business after 4 years because we felt like, okay, now we know we can definitely pay ourselves this monthly. So you can start at any time as long as you know you can sustain it. Of course, for your own bank statements, you need to have that set day on the month where you pay yourself. And of course, not more than 10 to 15% of the profit of your business.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. De là, je pense aussi qu'il y aura une autre question pour dire comment est-ce que vous allez établir les salaires de vos employés. Bon, ça, c'est autre chose. Je ne sais pas si vous avez une idée.
Well, that depends on industry standards. You need to understand the industry you're in, and you need to understand how much the salary typically is for people doing that job. And then you need to talk to your staff about where you are as a company. What we could pay people year one, we're paying way more now because we don't have the excuse that we're a startup. Now, when you're becoming a little bit more established, people have expectations according to the industry standards. Donc, c'est très important de comprendre votre industrie. What people get paid in that industry can give you an idea of what you pay your people. Slightly above, slightly below, but around the same range is the safest.
Great.
Okay, great. So will you make for time for us to record this in French? Because we will arrange with Papa Edouard
Okay.
or you can we'll arrange with Sarah at the office so that you can make a presentation in French, please. Why? Because we have a lot of members that would like to have it in French, but also remember, whatever we're doing now, tout ce que nous faisons aussi, il y a nos frères et sœurs au pays qui peuvent aussi en profiter. Donc, on souhaiterait avoir ça en français, comme ça ils peuvent. Donc, on va arranger avec Sarah et Papa Edouard pour que vous nous fassiez une version française que nous allons mettre sur YouTube pour nos membres et la communauté. Merci beaucoup en tout cas pour les sacrifices. Salutations à Monsieur Bambili et à la famille. Nous viendrons pour partager un verre de thé au bureau parce qu'il y en a là-bas. Merci beaucoup pour votre temps, madame. Et puis, merci à tous les membres. Merci à tous les membres de la communauté. Merci à tous les membres de CoopCongo. Et nous nous verrons encore dans 2 semaines où nous allons partager sur les blockchains, la chaîne des blocs. Et dans 1 mois où nous allons partager sur les cryptocurrencies, la crypto-monnaie. Merci, bonne soirée, madame, et bonne soirée aux membres et aux membres de CoopCongo et membres de la communauté. À nous revoir prochainement. Au revoir.
Merci, au revoir.